Hi everyone, welcome to the Timeform and Sporting Live Saturday racing preview. It's a classic weekend, the Betfred St Ledger Stakes at Doncaster, and I've got a classic panel to talk us through the action. We've got Kieran from Timeform and Matt Brocklebank from Sporting Live to discuss the action. Welcome along, gents. St Ledger week, how's it treating you, Kieran?
Punting wise, not really got stuck in yet. There's been plenty of small fields, but some brilliant racing. We've 12 two-year-old races at this meeting. We've seen plenty of clues for the future. Obviously, there's more clues for the future in the Ledger. We've got the traditional big handicap in the Portland, which looks as tricky as ever, I think. But I know you lads are quite keen on one at a big price, which we'll touch on later. But yeah, I love this meeting. Obviously, it's just on the road. You've got plenty of York form and other bits and pieces of form all tied together. So yeah, it looks like another good Saturday. And we don't have islands to clash with this time. So the Ledger takes all that limelight for once. Yeah,
it's all about Doncaster. We're going to look at the St Ledger and the Portland Handicap, as Kieran says. But the St Ledger first, because it looks a really good renewal. Lots of storylines, especially to get stuck into. But we're going to look at the Timeform ratings first up, just to get a general overview of how good this St Ledger is. And we've got a horse at the top there, Continuous, who's £5 clear, Kieran.
We do, yeah. I think this has the potential to be the best Ledger since Capri won it. Obviously, we had the likes of Stradivarius and Crystal Ocean, Defoe, Coroner, Rekindling as well. That was a real stellar renewal, but I think this is potentially just as good. We've only got 4 trainers represented, but Continuous, obviously, he won the Voltager. He's £5 clear of Gregory, who I think will really suit that step back up in trip. We'll see that clue shortly. Then you've got the other Gosden runners in Arrest, who comes here after Geoffrey Freer win. A little bit further down Middle Earth, the other Gosden runner, he obviously won the Melrose, and then you've got the Aidan O'Brien remained in Tower of London, and the Gordon Stakes form. So all the key pieces of form come together, all the key trails are represented. This is a real classic running, I think.
Talking of key trials, Matt, let's have a look at the Great Voltage here. We've got the video replay with Continuous winning very nicely, and Gregory back in third. Just talk us through this.
Yeah, well, Gregory went off favourite, didn't he? The unbeaten at this stage, Gregory in the red cap there on the right. Frankie Dettori got a few pelters afterwards for going too quick through the early stages. Meanwhile, Ryan Moore on Continuous sat cold out the back and came and pounced late in the straight. So I suspect some people will be fairly quick to knock this based purely on the way that the race panned out. I wonder if people might just be scratching around a little bit for something that isn't there. Sometimes I see a horse win a trial like that, and you just have to admit that the best horse won the race. Obviously, he was getting the £3 from Gregory, and that's back on level terms today. But Gregory was having his first run since winning the Queen's Vase that day, and you'd expect him to tighten up for the run, but the same can certainly be said for Continuous. He hadn't been seen since chasing home King of Steel at Royal Ascot as well, and just we know the way that Aidan O'Brien operates around this sort of end of season big long-term target, and a run at York can often bring them forward, and I'd be surprised if he didn't step up as well. So often the best trial. I think it's probably the best single piece of form coming into this, and for me that makes Continuous a really, really strong contender. He's probably a fair price as well, isn't he? When you think about impressive Voltager winners in recent years have tended to go off pretty skinny prices for the Ledger. But I think certain Frankie Dettori just throwing the spanner in the works here, because obviously 6 winners are already on the board. Frankie's final Ledger, and he's chosen Arrest over Gregory.
I think the Frankie factor will ensure Arrest goes off favourite, but if that wasn't in place, this would be really tricky to, decide who's going to go off favourite between Arrest and Gregory and Continuous. They're all pretty evenly matched. Let's have a look at the pace map to try and figure out how this is going to be run.
Yeah, I mean, Gregory obviously made the pace and did so at a good lick around York. Kieran Schumacher, who comes in for the very strong spare ride on this horse, will be mindful of that. But at the same time, as Kieran says, I think he's going to really appreciate going back up in distance as well. So he's not going to want it to suddenly turn into a crawl. It's unlikely to happen anyway, especially the way that we've seen Aidan O'Brien shape this race over the years, and he's looking to do so again, no doubt, with the 4 runners. Alexandroupolis, look, him and Denmark clearly have a huge amount to find. So whether they're sort of used a little bit in the pacemaking role, Danny Tuddup, you wouldn't necessarily think about as being your go-to jockey, would he, for someone who's go out and set the good fractions up front? But I suspect he's going to be fairly prominent on that horse. And Ryan Moore probably sitting cold out the back again, based purely around the fact that we don't know if Continuous is going to really thrive for a mile and 6 furlongs, this extended test. Now, if you look through his pedigree, he's actually very closely related to a 2-mile horse, basically, or certainly a horse who stayed that far. So there's plenty of stamina in the pedigree, and the way that he finished off the race at York, he'd be a bit pretty open to the idea that he's going to get extended mile and 6 round Donny.
Just quickly on Gregory, the way he finished off that Voltigeur, that was his first run over a mile and a half, his first run on quick ground. I think the step back up in trip and the return to more testing conditions, that's going to play into his strengths. He really motored back through that line.
He was staying on again, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's a lovely big sort as well, and I can see him overturning the form with Continuous. I think Continuous is quite a quick horse. Now that might sound a bit daft, the way he's seen out that mile and a half at York, but I don't think Connections were straight away saying this is our Ledger horse after he won at York. I think it's a case of he's probably the best one to fit in.
Having said that, you can see why Frankie has chosen to ride a rest, because we know he's a strong stayer, we know he handles softer ground. We saw that at Chester earlier in the season when winning the Chester Vars very nicely. And we've got a video clue here, Kieran, bouncing back to form in the Juddmonte colours in the Geoffrey Freer at Newbury.
Yeah, he reminds me of a bit of Logician Arrest. He's just a big, strong galloper, isn't he? Obviously, he's only defeats this season in the Derby and at Royal Ascot, where he didn't like the quick grounds. Is this a strong piece of form? Not really. The seconds come out and ran okay in the Park Hill on Thursday. I think most of these would have probably won that Geoffrey Freer. It is sometimes a good trial to the Ledger. I know Hookham won this before running really well in this. Frankie's obviously had the decision to make. He's picked a rest on account of the ground. He's won with plenty in hand there, hasn't he? There isn't really much rain due at Doncaster, and it is, well, there's a few showers in the air, but it's not going to be really, really soft ground, is it? It can dry quite quickly, and personally, I don't think he's made the right decision. I don't know if you agree, Matt.
I think it's quite a significant negative for Gregory, given the fact that you're going to have to be going on homework as well throughout the week. Obviously, it seems to have been hinged purely on ground. I'm not totally sure that's the case. A rest, I fell for him, I really did, after Chester, but subsequent evidence really suggests to me he's a very strong stayer, and I'd put Gregory in that category as well. If you roll on to next year's Ascot Gold Cup, then you'd be looking at a Rest and Gregory as likely candidates. I've already backed a Rest for the Champions Long Distance Cup on Ascot next month, so I'm sort of hoping to see a promising run from him here with that in mind, but he could well do both races. I do think he's a proper stayer. And
do you think he's quick enough for a Ledger?
No, well, that's my thing. I'm on Continuous anti-post, so I won't be looking to double down, but Continuous is the class horse in this, I think. And we've seen it in recent seasons where, you do get a mixed bag, don't you? You get horses that are the cup horses that win Ledgers, but Continuous, with that little bit of quality, might just be able to put them to the sword late on.
It's not just about the big three in the market this race. There's several other strands that we're going to quickly look at before we wrap up our Ledger thoughts. Matt, just a quick line on Middle Earth, who won the Melrose.
Yeah, there are some fears, I think. John Gosden aired on Nick Luck's podcast this week around the potential for soft ground. A son of Roaring Lion, clearly a progressive colt. Won the Skybet Melrose at York. That came on the back of Newmarket when he won, but still looking really rough around the edges. I just wonder if the big jump up to Group 1 company is going to find him out, to be honest. I think he's underpriced, if anything, around 8-1. Kieran,
Tower of London, unlucky not to win the Bahrain Trophy.
Yeah, he should have won that. Turned into a real test of speed. Ryan Moore dropped his stick late on, didn't he? That Castle Way form, obviously, on a line through Castle Way, you can't see Tower of London meeting Continuous. He'll have a few pounds to find. Wouldn't be surprised if he went on his travels to Australia in the long term, Tower of London. I'd love him to run in something like a Cesarewitch, but he's not entered. But yeah, he's probably a good horse without being a Ledger horse.
He was absolutely punted on the day, wasn't he, in the Bahrain Trophy?
Oh, yeah.
He was about 5-2 into 4-6 at the off. So again, you'd be very interested to see which way he went in the market, because hovering around 10-12-1 now, he's either a 6-1 shot. Yeah. He's either a 6-1 shot, or he could well be 20.
Yeah, Jim Crowley on board. Bit of an unusual jockey booking for Ballydoyle. half-brother to Capri, of course, who won the Leger, so chances, but I do think the ground's probably gone against Tower of London. Right then, final video clue comes from Goodwood in the Gordon Stakes, because the King's Horse, Desert Hero, in the Royal colours, gets the better of Chess Piece in the Godolphin colours. And Matt, we've seen Gordon Stakes winners and losers come out and win the Leger.
Yeah, we have, and we've seen horses win this race and finish second, I think, in the Leger a couple of times as well. Look, the interesting thing with Desert Hero is that as a son of Steve the Stars, you could sort of think, well, he's just been winning, just been doing enough, haven't you, when he won at Ascot narrowly and then here as well. But just for me, I'm not totally sure that's the case. I think he sort of scrambled home, didn't he, at Ascot?
Took off, he flew from the back.
He did,
in a strongly run race.
And he travelled quite well there, but then took a little while to pick up. Interestingly, Chess Piece in there, the eventual runner-up, he was on the sharp end throughout that day.
He's a proper galloper, Chess
Whereas
Piece.
Desert Hero...
Doncaster could suit him.
Yeah, whereas Desert Hero came past him. I don't think William Haggas is absolutely certain this horse is going to stay on extended mile on 6 furlongs. That's reading between the lines. He's kind of hopeful, more than confident. And of the two, if I had to bet one, it probably would be Chess Piece. Look, there's only a neck between them that day. Because of the King owning this horse, he's 5 to 1, 6 to 1. And the Godolphin runners double that price. And you just sort of put all that together in the melting pot. And the fact that they're both unexposed improvers, you know, Chess Piece is, he was behind Gregory as well, wasn't he, in the Queen's Vase? And again...
And that was on fast ground.
Yeah, and it was at early stages in his development. Between those two runs, he went to Scotland, won a nice little race at Hamilton, which just built him up, I think. And it was another good run there. Yeah, horses that have been beaten in the Gordon have gone on to win the Leger as well. So I wouldn't put anyone off Chess Piece at double figure prices.
Yeah, Arctic Cosmos, one of them who was beaten in the Garden and won the Leger. I like Chess Piece. But what do you guys like? Just final thoughts on the Leger, Kieran, and selection?
Gregory, for me, I think that step back up in trip, he'll thrive for it. I think he's a big, strong horse, and I think the return to softer ground will really suit him as well. Don't rule out Middle Earth. I was at York when he won the Melrose. He is every inch a 4-year-old. He'll be even better next year. He's another big, strong sort, and I was really impressed with what he did. That form, he beat Nakib 2 starts ago, who came out and won a valuable handicap at Haydock last week. He's probably an each-way player, Middle Earth. Is he potentially good enough? I'm not sure, but I'm very, very keen on Gregory. And because Frankie's jumped ship, we're getting 2 points bigger.
Sticking with continuous, Matt?
I am. I do think Arrest is the danger above Gregory, to be perfectly honest. But yeah, continuous. Hopefully we're on the right one, anti-post here for Aidan O'Brien.
Okay, that is the Betfred St Leger 3:35 Doncaster Saturday, the final classic of the season. We're going to quickly look now at the Portland Handicap, the 225 at Doncaster, always a great betting race. Let's look at the Timeform ratings to help us out here. And Kieran, we have got Kim and Grace top of the shop.
Yeah, she absolutely bolted up at York at the back end of last season and managed to win a listed race at Lingfield earlier in the season as well. And she's absolutely plummeted down the weights this year, but there was real signs of revival in the Fillies handicap at the Eber meeting last time. She found a bit of trouble when Ryan Moore was on. She's surprisingly been dropped £2 in the weight, so she's only £2 higher than that York victory. I did have a slight suspicion she was better against her own sex, but then that York race was against the boys, so that quashed that theory. She'll have a good chance.
Travels well.
She does, yeah. Richard Hughes is absolutely flying at the minute as well. You'd have to respect her chances. Do I think she's overpriced? Probably not. Then you've got the old specialist called Me Ginger, 3 from 6 at Doncaster. Obviously awarded this race last year when Chipstead interfered with him. We'll touch on Kingsland later. He's the one I'm quite keen on. And then you've got some of these that ran in last year as well. Mackinac significantly. And then you go down to the likes of Aberama Gold, who's obviously thrived since joining David O'Meara, and Badri, who's had a good season as well. It is a very, very trappy race, this, isn't it?
Top of the market, Matt, is Call Me Ginger, around 8 to 1. Are you for or against?
Yeah, he's a bit annoying, isn't he, Call Me Ginger? We both fancied him a few runs ago when he played up at the stall, Scoop, and didn't go in.
Will he go in on Saturday?
He did not go in. Since when he's won at Chester, he won at Ascot just last weekend. As Kieran said, he was awarded the race. That he was rated 89 last year, runs off similar mark, 91 this time around.
He won nicely, gets on well.
Oh yeah, what is he now, 7? He must be in the form of his life. Gets on really well with Amy Ward, the jockey, down the bottom of the weights. Very, very sound each way chance, I'd say, Scoop.
Kings Lynn, Kieran?
Yeah, he's my idea to win a scoop. I really fancied him for the Camish Trophy earlier in the season. Thought we're gonna go back to Donny and start the flat season with a bang, and he ran terribly. He got hampered at the start, and that was in heavy ground, but he has no problem with soft ground. Since then, things haven't really gone to plan. He ran okay behind the big board at Ascot last time, but I think 5.5 at Doncaster, where he has such a good record, will suit. He's been freshened up by a 6-week break, and interestingly, he went to the sales and he was bought back by Andrew Balding, now runs in his colours. Oisin Murphy's booked, Harry Davies has been riding him the last few times. Everything's primed for a big run. It's time to jump off the cliff with Kings Lynn, so I'm either going to sink or swim, aren't I? And obviously the King's going to be there, so I'm sure he'll be cheering on his old pal. I certainly will be. I think he's got a good chance.
Let's have a look at a couple of video clues. Firstly, York. And we've got Mackinac finishing 4th and Vintage Clarets finishing 6th, and both of them turn up here, Matt, and this could be a key clue for punters.
Yeah, another big, massive competitive handicap here. Mackinac, I quite liked the run of Mackinac here. Just trying to pick him up.
On the left in the noseband.
Near side in the noseband, of course. And he comes with a good late run there. Doesn't quite go through with it. The form of Judy Camacho's yard just putting me off ever so slightly. I know we mentioned it ahead of Shaquille's run at Haydock. Otherwise, he's a player. He's running off 96 here. His last 2 handicap wins have come off 100 and 103. So definitely a contender. He was only 6th in the Portland last year. He was running off £5 higher. So yeah, he's in with a shot as well. Whether he just wants a flat 5 furlongs, I'm not totally sure. And Vintage Claret's the other one. Richard Fahey's not convinced about his handicap, Mark, is he? I don't know.
Well, he won a couple of times earlier in the season, and he thinks that he might just need to come down a bit again.
You go back, he was a class horse, wasn't he? A 2-year-old, placed in a Coventry Stakes, and he's just sort of feel as though this horse has found his level again this year. As you say, won a couple of handicaps already throughout this current campaign. I just wonder, he might be one for a Bronze Cup next week.
Next week, we might be talking about him then. Let's have a look at the pace map, because it's a big field, and we want to know where they are coming from, and if you look at that, you're thinking middle to stand side really, where the early pace is. Yeah,
so it's a tricky one this, because we've actually watched last year's renewal in similar ground just before we came down, and they sort of went centre to far side.
Did last year?
Yeah, I think they'll probably come down the middle, and they might split at some point, but I don't think you want to be very, very high. I think sort of 3 to 14 is probably where you want to be.
Okay.
No excuses around the draw, I think, is what we're saying.
Yeah.
Well,
I know you had a bit of a differing view, Scoop. Do you feel like it's going to be those on the far wing might be inconvenient?
I thought they might be marooned a little bit, on the far side. And traditionally in this race, middle to high is where you've wanted to be.
The only thing...
Not many, I know last year was a bit different, but not many have been won on the far side in the Portland.
I just wonder, with a few of the fancied runners being low, whether they'll naturally track that side.
Yeah, we shall see. Let's have a look at the final video clue. And it is a horse drawn towards the stand side. Tease Spirit, you can see there in the red cap and the noseband. And this was bouncing back to form after a few below par efforts, Matt.
Yeah, this was a cracking run from Tease Spirit in the red cap noseband. Was dead progressive last year for the Nichols team. Ended up winning a listed race over in Ireland. Yeah, so this was, he'd been struggling, understandably, off that increased handicap mark, but this was a really good run. Finished 2nd on the day there to the Horse Watcher's horse. And it's just Rathel, it's just whether he can sort of build on that. If anything, I think getting back on sort of slower ground might see him regress from that run, so I'd be cooler rather than hotter. I'm not
I had
sure
the same thoughts with that one. Dead interesting apart from the ground.
Didn't he?
Well handicapped, I think.
Last time. I did the Timeform report for that race. He was a bit slowly away.
Sort of got wiped out by another horse.
Lookout Louis went
berserk. That's right, that's right. Okay, let's wrap it up. Selection time for the Portland, please, Kieran.
I think I'm allowed 2 in a race like this, so I'll take either side of the draw. Kings Lynn, as earlier mentioned, and Hurricane Ivor, who won this 2 years ago when trained by William Haggis. He's now £10 lower in the weights. Jesse Harrington's brought him over. He's only run at Doncaster. He won this race, and yes, he does have a bit to prove at present, but there is a
question mark on his Timeform rating.
Yeah, but there's a piece of form earlier in the season at Naas. He was beaten 2 3/4 lengths in a listed race. Moss Tucker won it, obviously Group 1 winner. Tenor Brisbane was 2nd, Big Gossie was 4th, and he was 5th. it comes back to anything like that form, he'll have a big say, 20 to 1.
20 to 1, I like it.
But yours is going to be at least twice that price, I think, Matt.
Well, it might be. I can see myself backing 2 as well. I could see myself backing both of Stuart Williams' horses in this. You mentioned in your column ahead of Friday's racing, Williams' record at the St Ledger meeting in these handicaps, it's in excess of 30%. Really targets the meeting, and I think he's targeted this race with both these horses. Dusky Lord, who ran all right in it last year when he was trained by Roger Varian, then went and won the Silver Cup very easily by 3 lengths at Ayr. He's had just the three runs for Williams so far this season, one of which was quite promising at Sandown in between, so interesting headgear switch with him as well, with the cheek pieces back. And Existent has another little headgear switch. They've taken off the cheek pieces, I think, so they've taken off the hood with him just to try and sweeten him up. It does tend to work with these quirky sprinters, just a little small change with the headgear. Can really spark something. He's just very well handicapped. He slipped to a mark of 95. This was a horse they've run in the last 2 King Stands. You know, he's been rated 106, 107, certainly last season. This year, the key piece of form that really brings him into it, he was second to Lord Ridderford. Lord Ridderford, who won Qatar Goodwood Festival again. That handicap
Lord was
over
second to him.
he was in the previous year's edition. Yeah, I didn't know whether. Yeah, I mean, it's a good race, isn't it, that race at Goodwood? But Existent was second to Lord Ridderford, the course specialist there, despite being drawn well away from him towards the centre of the track, and he runs off £5 lower than that mark. It just ran last week as well. He was 5th to Call Me Ginger, and the Goodwood run that I refer to just came 3 days after a fair effort at Ascot as well. So I think the quick turnaround isn't a bad thing for Existence. So they're 25 to 1 and 50 to 1, and I think I'm going to be backing both of them each way with the extra places. Okay,
Stuart Williams' pair against the field for Matt in the Portland, and 2 for Kieran as well. Hey, it is that kind of race, why not? Enjoy St Ledger Day, the final classic of the season. Can Frankie do it on a rest in his final classic? We will find out. Enjoy the racing on Saturday.